Hello, I'm Kamla. Welcome to a show where we bring you conversations and interviews with entrepreneurs, technologists, filmmakers, and other newsmakers from in and around the San Francisco Bay Area. Today, my guest is Neerja Raman. She's a distinguished researcher at Media X at Stanford University. Prior to that, she spent about 25 years working at HP, and she is probably one of those rare breed of women that worked in technology. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So you are rare in many, many ways, Neerja, because you went to a school where you're the only girl among 500 boys or more. This is one of the best schools in India.
Girls, yeah.
6 girls, yeah. One of the six, yeah. And this is one of the best boarding schools in India.
Yes.
And then you were the only woman in your graduate school at Stony Brook when you majored in chemistry.
Yes.
And then you come to the Valley in the 70s, and then you design a job for yourself. And then you get into what is the original startup of Silicon Valley, HP.
That's right.
So tell us, who was your role model? Did you ever think of barriers when you were in college and when you came in 1970 to the city, to US?
My role models, I would say, were my parents, and especially my mother. And I didn't really think of barriers. Somehow, the way we were brought up, we were taught to think of everything as you could do it. You know, we were both my mother and father were very much like, be a change maker and you can do it. So
they said they used the word change maker then.
They were. Well, I'm using the word change maker now, but change society, because that's what my parents did. They changed society in India when they were there, and they expected us, because I was. We were one of 3 girls, so my father always said that girls can do everything. So when I started studying science in school, and he was very supportive of that, and I always knew I would be working and utilizing my education. So
does
I
that
didn't see any
start at
barriers.
home then, this nurturing of science and a love for math? Does that start at home, you think, because you have personal experience?
For me, it did. I think my parents wanted us to do whatever we were passionate about, you know, what we enjoyed doing. So for me, science was something I loved, and so I was encouraged to, you know, study as much as I wanted to, and they supported that.
And your father was a chemistry teacher at Doon School, which
That's
is
correct.
one of the premier boarding schools.
Yes.
Where the alumni were Mrs. Gandhi, the former prime minister's children, went to school, and
That's right.
a lot
That's
of other
right.
people.
Yeah.
What was it like studying in a school? I mean, it's an all-boys school.
Yeah.
What was it like? Because early on you seem to have gotten this experience when you talk about barriers, and your father said women can do, girls can do anything, and then you're in the school. So
I think we took it for granted. I think we didn't analyze it as much, because I get that question quite a bit. There were other good schools. In fact, the other famous girls' school in Dehradun is Wellams, and you know there is an option to go there. But clearly, at least my father thought that science education was much better in Doon School, and I never considered going anywhere other than Doon School, because I wanted to have that great education. So it wasn't as difficult as it sounds, because we just took it for granted that we would be there. So I was the only girl in my class. At that time, there were, I think, 6 girls in the whole school, and my elder sister was there at that time too for some part of it. But it was not as difficult as people imagine it might be, because the way the school campus is, the parents and teachers and staff, everybody lives on campus. So it's like a campus. So it's your home and it's your school.
okay, so fast forward, 1970 you arrive in New York. Which plane did you come in? Do you know which airlines you flew in?
I flew Lufthansa. I remember that very well, because of an incident in Frankfurt and on the way.
Did you get vegetarian food?
I must have, because I was fairly strict vegetarian. I mean, probably the food was inedible, but nothing's changed. Some things don't change, yeah.
Okay.
No, it was Lufthansa, and I think it was one of those 747, one of those large planes or something. So
And who greeted you in New York? Because you were on your own. You just got the scholarship to study at Stony Brook.
That's right.
Were there any students that came and greeted you, or did you have to take the bus to go to Stony Brook from JFK?
Yeah, I actually, so as it turns out, I had a friend in Washington. So we came and I took a side trip to Washington and then came back to New York. And then nobody met me. And then I took the train, Penn, I still remember, I got to Penn Station. And then I took the LIRR. And then took the LRIR, and I remember thinking, oh, this, because in India the trains were actually pretty good. I used to go between Delhi and Dehradun, that this train is really slow. And then we got off at Stony Brook, and actually they did have a welcoming person from Stony Brook, and that's actually the person that I later married. So.
Oh, you met your future husband at the station.
And his qualification for being there was that he had a car. There was only 2 students in the whole community.
So he was a rich grad student.
Well, it was a broken down car, but he had a car. The other one had a car that didn't run at all. So.
Okay, and then you also got to work on computers when you were in Stony Brook.
Yes, actually, that was my first experience. I think started my love affair with computers in Stony Brook. So I was
Is that the first time you saw a computer?
Yeah, I mean, there were no the first time I saw a computer, and the computer in those days doesn't look anything like it was an IBM, one of those huge, the entire data center is one big computer. And my first sort of brush with the programming, it was a deck of cards. So my subject was physical organic chemistry, which is a lot of different algorithms, and we used to have to do them by hand. And then it was so wonderful because we got this deck of cards, and all you had to do is feed it, and the answer would come out. And I loved that. So it
was like magic.
It was magic, yeah. And so I took a class, and Pascal was just starting at that time. It was a new language that was just coming out. And the decks
in
1970. And the deck I had was Fortran, and so I knew I didn't want to do Fortran. So, and Pascal was just coming out, so I took a course in Pascal, and I just loved programming and computers.
And then
Hello World, and I was hooked.
But assembling the code was not that easy.
For me, actually, programming came very. It's a very logical thing. You just write down every step in detail. So for me, programming actually came very.
Yeah, if you can solve those chemistry equations.
Yeah. So it was fun. I loved it.
So you took to programming like a duck takes to water.
Yeah, well, I loved it. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to use it as much right away because computers were still very new. But it was like I said, hello world. Do you know that? Do you know that? Hello world. Everybody
That's the first line.
It's the first line that everybody writes. And
yes.
When I wrote hello world, I was hooked.
I tried writing hello world in C, and that's how. After that, I couldn't write any script. So then you come to California.
Yeah.
You go to San Diego, and then you come to the Bay Area in the 70s. Silicon Valley was a term that was just coined. And
yeah, it wasn't even coined then. I think
71.
71.
Yeah, it was coined.
So it was coined.
And then your husband joins a hot startup of those days,
yeah,
Intel.
Right.
Describe to us what Silicon Valley was. So you came into San Francisco, and then what was this place like?
Well, it was, so when we moved from California, the way that happened was that we had gone traveling. We thought we might, and I loved California. So my husband actually got a job in San Diego. So we moved to San Diego. But when we moved to San Diego, I was working there, but San Diego is a really small town. And then next to San Diego was the Bay Area, which at that time seemed like, oh, you had the plays. I mean, there was not even a theater, and both my husband and I are big into theater, and we met at the theater, right?
Yes.
So I just wanted to move to San Francisco, Bay Area. And so to me, it seemed like, the place was big. But now that I think about it, other than Intel, none of these companies, the revolution, the internet revolution hadn't happened. The software revolution hadn't happened. It was.
But the chip revolution was happening.
Chip revolution was just starting. Yeah.
Yes, and HP was already an old company by then.
HP is a great company because it sort of reinvents itself with the times, or it used to. So when I was working there. So.
Then you come here and you
And
do what a lot of women today do in some sense. If they are trained elsewhere, they come here. If they have a spouse working, then they take some classes and then they look for a job. And that's the path you followed. You did software programming at De Anza, and then you did an internship. And then you designed a job for yourself.
Yeah, so I was actually working at Stanford as a researcher when we moved here. I used to work in UCSD, and then so we both moved. We were both working in San Diego, then and I joined Stanford right away. And then I really missed the fact that I wasn't utilizing my two loves were computers and instruments, and I wasn't utilizing that. And then I said, I'm here in the Bay Area, which is where it's all happening, and I need to be a part of it. And then I sort of, as you say, designed a job for myself because I loved instruments and I love software, and I said the day is going to come soon when these are going to be connected. And how will they be connected? It'll be automated instrumentation. And so I kept, and HP at that time was really the only company doing it. They were getting into that business. They had mass spectrometers, and they were getting into computers, and I said they will be automating it.
So what is instrumentation?
So the instruments, so do you know about how everybody does drug testing at the Olympics right now, for instance?
No, I
wouldn't.
wouldn't.
You wouldn't know that, but
I never qualified for anything. I wouldn't know.
So instruments are, what we did was mass spectrometers, and they're used for analysis of trace elements. And so, for instance, after I joined HP, one of the first things we did was introduce our system at the Olympics for drug testing. And since now, of course, it's de rigueur. Everybody uses it nowadays. Of course, even employers use it, and then of course you can use it for clean air testing. So the EPA uses our instrumentation. So it's basically for testing small quantities, very small, minute quantities of any, just.
So
about
how would
any
you
chemical.
physically describe an instrument? If I haven't seen one, so I'm just and I'm sure people.
You have seen one. Your phone is an instrument, so
Okay.
everything is an instrument. But the instruments that I worked with the most were mass spectrometers, gas chromatographs, and liquid chromatographs. Those were the systems that we were building.
So it's combining chemistry, analytics, and software.
Yeah. So I was actually one of the, and that was the big strength I had, is that I was probably the only person in HP that actually, at that time, in the scientific instruments division, that actually knew all this, because we had chemists who were, who would design maybe the experiment, and we had software people, because software was just coming up, who would write the software. And then we had people who would put things together. They were actually the hardware people and stuff. And I probably knew all parts of the process better than
you didn't
anybody
have
else.
this cross pollination that's so this hybridization of knowledge that's so prevalent today.
And I was the first of that kind. And I still today believe that the real innovation happens at the intersections of disciplines. And that's actually what I did later on at HP Labs. That's why we did the transition from sort of printing into imaging systems, because it's really a combination of different skill sets.
So at HP Labs, you worked for 25 years, and most of the time you spent in the imaging
so
printing?
HP, I worked for 25 years. About half of it was at Scientific Instruments Division, where we created the systems, which is why I actually joined HP Labs. So about half.
Okay. And were you one of the few women in technology? How common was it to see women in those days, say in the 90s?
So not in the technical section. I think the women were entering the workforce. I think that was a very big part of what I did at HP, and I continue to do, is actually help and facilitate girls in science or women in technology or whatever, so that the environment would be more hospitable for them.
So what did you do for that, to facilitate girls in science?
I used to give talks. We used to host science clubs for girls. I would make it whatever works. It's fun. it'll get you economically, better job. It would, just do it because, you can do whatever you want, My daughter, I used to tell a story, if you write English, then it's a little bit to the teacher to say whether your essay is good or bad. But if you do physics or math and you get 100%, it doesn't matter what they say. If you get 100%, you get 100%. So I would use whatever argument it would take to make the sale,
and get involved.
Yeah.
And get working in HP must have been very interesting because it's a very different company in the sense that they probably allowed for diversity, if I could use that.
Yes. So when I joined HP, I think I was probably one of the few women, and definitely the only one in the technology. There were hardly any Indians there. It was a lot of white men in the company, but that's just because of the field.
Did they wear the shirt and the tie?
No, that's IBM. Okay. No, but they do wear the shirt and the tie, but they're not as formal as. But I think that the difference at HP was that when it wasn't intentional to keep any women out, and so the processes that we put in place to help women, they were receptive to. My managers were receptive to. So I'll give you two examples of things that I did that help women. So one of the ways companies grow very often is, you look around you and you say, who's a great person, and you hire them. What I said is that if you did something like that, there will be qualified women candidates out there, but you wouldn't find them because if you looked around you, they're probably not around you, they're probably way far away. And so as part of the interview process, we said you must cast your net, wider so that you actually do find some women, And now you hire the best person for the job, but at least make the effort to find qualified candidates. That's one. The other one, I think that was, again, a company policy change, was that they didn't used to post functional level positions. That would be at the executive level. I guess it's just, so how you became a functional level person was you sort of heard through the grapevine or in the older boys club that there's a position available, and then you would apply for it. Well, as a woman, there's no way I'm going to hear about this because it's not something that anybody else knows. And so one of the things I brought up with our HR people is that, functional level positions should be posted, because if they're posted, then at least women within the company can apply for them.
Yeah. Oh, so that was not a dumb thing.
No. So in those days, so it wasn't meant to be anti-women, but I think being a woman in there, I was able to see these kinds of things and make the policy changes. And I would say that HP was more or less supportive in making those changes. So functional level position, they said, what is the point of it? Why would you want to do that? Because it's, just a few people are, going to be.
But you probably have seen the power of old schoolboys network, and you know that women don't network.
They didn't in those days, and so again, we started these whole sort of a lot of things about women supporting one another in the workplace. First of all, they weren't used to that, and then also the networking events.
Okay, so from there you went on to you took an early retirement, and
yes.
In the 20th century, if you retired, you sat back at home, read books, and tinkered. But there you are at Media X. What do you do at Media X at Stanford?
So in 2006, I knew I've always liked writing. So actually, one of the reasons I left HP was I wanted to do more of my own writing, and the parts that really interested me over my last 6-7 years was what change technology could make. It's like a game-changing thing. It's something that you didn't dream of before. And I think you can talk about the industrial age and say, you can fly someplace versus walk someplace. It completely changes the game for you, right? You can think of doing things. So my feeling is with imaging and multimedia, the way the things that those make possible, is something people can't even imagine unless they have access to that. And so one of the areas I really wanted to explore was a change in education. So education for, make it more accessible and make it cheaper. And so if you think about the world is about 7 billion people, you know, about 5 billion probably need to be educated. And if you look at the number of people who are being educated, it's probably half that. And so it's about access, and as well as it's about affordability. And then there's the whole quality. So I really wanted to retire early enough that I had enough energy to study and research and write about what are the factors that need to, you know, to be tweaked so that technology in education would become pervasive.
So this is gender neutral?
Yes.
I mean, you're not looking at women or girls alone?
No. This is just completely fundamentally changing the way we do education. If you think about education, the last time we had any change in the way education was done was with the advent of the printing press. So part of it is my printing background, because all of a sudden it wasn't in a person's head. So the classes, you know, it was the revered things were the books and the libraries, and so a lot of knowledge was there. So that increased access to education. But that is fairly limiting. Libraries are expensive. It takes 20 years to train a teacher and all of that. So with multimedia and actually video production and audio classes and etc., it is now possible to have content produced once, really high quality content, and have it be available to everybody, right? And so we are seeing that change happen as it is right now. I mean, in the classroom instruction, it's not about distance learning. It's really about you can learn on your own, and then you work together to solve a project. So it's really, yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So that kind of a change, I wanted to study how we could make it happen.
And that's what you're doing at Media X?
That is my, yeah. So that basically, technology is a complete change maker in some of the fundamental things, and education is one of them that I'm very interested in.
But you also offer mentoring services to entrepreneurs.
Yes, so social entrepreneurship. So what I started is that I felt that I had launched quite a few new businesses. So I had the business skills, I had the technology skills, and I also had this social sort of part of me that wanted to, you know, apply this to, you know, enhance society. And so I started doing these social entrepreneurship for the last 4 or 5 years, kind of mentoring sessions, and I was part of Digital Vision, which helps students who come into it. Some of them will come in with a lot of activism. They have a lot of heart, but they don't have the business skills. Some have a lot of business skills, but they may not have the technology. So part of what we do is create teams and then work with people to make sure that they see the full picture.
Has anybody come out and created a company that we may have heard of or that we should look out for?
We have actually one of the companies that we work with that I was in is called SIPX. It's about making content available for college work. So it's actually out of the bookstore and so on. So there's there's quite a few actually that actually another famous one that came out of Stanford that I mentored for a while is D.Light, which is about
D.Light.
Yeah, which is about light, actually clearing solar lanterns. So
creating solar lanterns.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is now actually quite common now. So there's quite a few.
So that keeps you busy.
I have a lot of fun with that. Yes.
So you're not retired.
Well, I'm retired too, in the sense that I don't have a schedule like I did, and I mean, after HP, this feels like retirement.
So a question that I have is, what advice would you give to young women and girls? You know, there's a fine line between tooting your own horn and sharing some of your accomplishments. And sometimes we may, as a younger person, we may not know the difference between the two. What advice would you give to someone on how they can share their accomplishments without sounding too overbearing?
I don't think women generally are overbearing. I think if anything else, they don't, and I know I made this mistake. I know I could have enhanced my career at least 5-6 years if I was more upfront about what I wanted. As a manager, I really appreciated it when people let me know what they wanted, and then I could work with them to help achieve that, because then it can become a mentoring relationship. So I would say decide for yourself what you want, and then go for it and make that your objective. and you can, so then it's not tooting your horn. You'd say, you know, I would like to do this position, and you know, these are the skills that I have that apply to it, and then what are the other skills I need to have? So there are always, you know, skills that you're missing. So you know, if you ask that way, then people will be willing to mentor you. So I would say just look a couple of years ahead. And they also say, the other thing they say is you should sort of act and dress and walk for the next job you want, you know. So you can't step on other people's toes. That's the only problem with that one. But if you work with your manager or work with the company, you know, it doesn't have to be with your manager. So, but making it clear in your own head. I think a lot of women, they don't make it clear to themselves what they want. So that was part of the mentoring I used to do, is have that dialogue. What do you want? You know, the work-family life balance and this and that. In fact, that's what got me to writing the book, because women, of course, have that problem, but even some men actually have that problem. So.
Neerja, thank you so much for your time. You brought so much of clarity into our thinking. And thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back with another show. Until then, goodbye.
Thank you.